I'm Brady, and I'm here today with
Isha, Addie,
Tyler Ironman,
Logan,
Marissa, Avery, Kate, Mackenzie, Lena Rumpler.
And I'd like to start off with a personal story about college. Last year, I found myself not really knowing what to do, not knowing where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. And I knew where I wanted to go, Chatham University, but I never thought I could make it there. I always thought that I was never enough, I couldn't make it there. My grades weren't good enough, I had no social life, I was never gonna make it. And now, fast forward to this year, I'm committed to college, I'm committed to Chatham, I'm doing exactly what I want, I've conquered my anxieties, and even though I have anxiety disorder, I have gotten over what I feel and had a great time and ready for my future. And that once lead me to my question or my statement that even though it isn't important to know that even if you aren't diagnosed with major depression or anxiety disorder, that your feelings of anxiety or depression are still valid because it can go undiagnosed for a very long time. So my question to you is, have you had a similar experience? And if you're willing to share, we'd love to hear.
I will say I was very stressed out about college and I had a lot of anxiety about moving forward with my life because I don't really do well with change. And I think like the main thing I just completely focused on was like not to worry so much because everything will like eventually figure itself out. So I tried to stick with what I wanted to do. And I didn't like go for a certain college or like anything, like a certain state, nothing. I looked up best places for some of the careers that I want to do in life. And thankfully, Lynn University actually has, which is something that I'm interested in now because they offer everything that I want to do. They have like 3 of the 4 majors I was thinking about doing. So I'm gonna just try to start off there. Anything goes south, I can always transfer.
Yeah.
But that's a later problem. As of right now, I'm gonna try to figure that out and take it one step at a time.
Good. And a little follow-up question for that. Have you found that overthinking has caused a lot of those anxious feelings?
Absolutely. I think overthinking is like just a really big problem that like everybody does. And it's hard to steer off of that, but I think you just need to put your main focuses first, and then whatever happens, it's gonna happen either way. You do it or you don't. And then from there, you have to just keep doing those steps forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like many times I'd find myself knowing these thoughts are irrational about college. Like I know I'm gonna make it into a college. Yeah. I knew I could probably get into Chatham, but I found myself like always bashing myself and putting myself down. The one that was I was keeping myself back, and until I was accepting of what the circumstances were, I couldn't move forward, and I couldn't accept the fact that I am good enough, and I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. It just takes that perseverance.
It does.
Right.
And it does take time to realize that like nothing's gonna change in a day. You're gonna take a lot of it's gonna take you a lot of time and a lot of things to acknowledge before you get to that final point of like realizing that you are enough, and no matter what you do, it's not really gonna like immediately change all those things. Like you actually have to like be self-aware with a lot of it.
Tyler, I got a little story for you first.
All right.
Back around 2 years ago and beyond, I've always wanted to go to the gym. I've always felt like I needed to be active, but I never was able to bring myself to do it. I always made excuses, rationalized thoughts like, oh, what am I gonna do? Oh, let's go to the gym. No, I never did it. I would never act on my wants. I never valued myself enough to do it. And a lot of it had to do with being anxious. I felt judged. Even though I may not have been, I felt it, and that phantom judgment was still there, and it created a lot of anxiety for me that I only have recently conquered. And I'd like to point out to you that even though you may not be diagnosed with either major depression or anxiety disorder, it's still valid, your feelings of being depressed or anxiousness, because a lot of the time it can go undiagnosed if people don't want to seek help. And I have a question for you. Have you ever felt alone or otherwise helpless in your feelings?
Yeah, I've definitely gone through some periods of, not so great mental health, but I always just try to find ways to work out of it, healthy ways to just better myself and kind of push those feelings to the side and convince myself, it's kind of overthinking and it's not that bad.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I'll relate it back to your gym example. Like, I have a lot of friends, they're really into going to the gym, they're making major grounds, and then like I'm not a very big guy, so like I'll go to the gym and I'll be going for a couple weeks consistently, and I just won't see progress, and I'll be like, maybe this isn't for me. And I get down on myself. I'm like, am I like a failure? But then I gotta remember, like, some things just aren't for certain people. Like I found other passions, other hobbies, other than the gym that have made myself feel like a better person. So.
And has overthinking been a big part of the anxiety-inducing factors?
Yeah, it definitely has. Cause like I don't want other people to think that I'm some weird kid because I can't be just like them. But then I gotta remember, like, that's just what I'm thinking. They're probably not thinking that. Like, just because it goes through my head doesn't mean it goes through theirs.
Exactly. It's everyone's own personal story. I really agree with that. I'd like to ask, have you ever felt marginalized, helpless, or otherwise alone in your feelings of anxiety or depression?
Do you want to start? Yeah, sure. Yes, I have. I feel really anxious when it comes to school because I just feel like I put like a higher standard for myself, like the grades I want to meet, like the places I want to go. And I'm playing volleyball in college, so that was like another factor that went into my decision. So it was really difficult to try to find a match between the kind of academics that I wanted and the athletics. So all of that took place last year, but now that I'm a senior, I have to maintain a certain grade just to be able to like get to go to that college. So that anxiety definitely takes precedent in my life, and it's nice that we get to talk about it. So
Yeah.
I feel alone.
I completely agree with Avery. I'm not playing a sport in college, but I feel like the hardest part, especially with senior year, is just maintaining your grades. Like you're going through so much all at once, and like it's just really hard to do it all and keep up with schoolwork.
As a follow-up question, have you ever noticed any irrational thoughts that are irrational, but you can't seem to get over that have caused your feelings of anxiety or depressed?
Yeah, like thinking, oh, if I fail this test, I'm just not going to go to college. Like, I know that's not true. It's just one test. It's one time. Like, I can get over it, even maybe in the same 9 weeks or even just like that semester. So you just have to know that one test or one whatever doesn't define you. You can keep going.
Yeah.
Exactly. One project, one test, whatever it is. One college rejection, it's not the end. Rejection's just redirection.
But I would say I've been very lucky in that I have a really good support system at home with my parents and here, like with my friends, like the clowns behind this camera right now. But yes, I feel like it happens to everyone, because even if like in my case where I'm not getting a lot of external pressure put on me for my performance, it still matters to me how I do, and I put pressure on myself. But I think having that support system, and sometimes people don't know that you need that or that you need them as a support system. So a big thing has also been for me is to voice to people that I want their help and that I want them to be around. Because like as much as someone might love you, they can't read your mind. So every time that I've been overwhelmed, that's usually what I do, is that I go vent to my mom, or I talk to my friends, or like ask for homework help. But that's usually, like you said, like you bounce back from your school stuff. That's how I bounce back from mine.
I think that's a very good point, because that's what we're all about here at Stand Together, like ending that stigma, getting out there and asking for help, saying you're vulnerable, I need help, right? And I think that's very powerful words you just said, because that's our entire goal here at Stand Together. And I'd also like to follow up, has those few times that you said that you have felt anxious or overwhelmed, has overthinking been a big part of that?
Yeah, massive. I'm gonna make a joke here. Mr. Lyons and my old English teacher both told me that I have a big head because it's always thinking about things, and that I probably can't sleep because of it, which was low-key a jab at my eye bags that day, but whatever. But no, a big thing, again, like I said before, when you put like the pressure on yourself, a big thing is that you think about what if you can't reach or like get to the expectation that you've set for yourself. And then you think about, instead of, I feel like the reason you get overwhelmed there is you think about all of the ways that you can't get to your goal, and all of those like minute, once in a million meteor shower type instances that may happen. So I think that the thing that helped me there too, just to throw it out there, is to, again, go to my support system, really get it all out. Like, you have to feel what you have to feel before you can get better about it. Thank you. And then I just kind of take, like, once my feelings are out, I take all my feelings out of it, and I just list out, like, quite literally, I write everything down as to what I have to do, and then I break it up further if I need to. But no, yeah, overthinking is usually the first problem that I face.
Yeah.
is that I'm like, I have 1,000 things to do, and I don't know if I can actually do any of it. But I think verbalize that. I don't know if anyone's asking for my advice, but like verbalize it, even if you're just like talking to yourself. Like, it's okay. Okay, just pop an AirPod in, walk down the street, and talk to yourself if you need to.
Amen. I like that. Have you ever felt helpless or otherwise alone in those feelings?
I would say yes, absolutely. I think especially you were talking about college. I would not speak to anyone about college as well. It was a very private thing, and I did feel clueless a lot of the time with the application process, and I was afraid to reach out for help because I didn't want people to think that I was not working hard enough or behind in my applications, this, that, and the other. So yeah, it was pretty isolating.
Yeah. And another follow-up question. How do you think overthinking has played a role in your feelings of anxiety?
Yeah, I think especially when you isolate yourself, it leaves a lot of room for overthinking. And so I think you spiral, and that worsens the anxiety, and it also worsens the situation that's giving you anxiety in the first place, which leads to more anxiety. It's a horrible cycle.
Yeah, and a lot of the times I feel like I'm beating myself up.
Yeah.
Over things that I'm the only one that considers it detrimental. Like, it feels like I'm beating myself up over and over for nothing.
Don't beat yourself up, Brady.
Exactly.
You got this.
And we're talking about mental health and ending its stigma. So I'd like to start off with a personal anecdote of mine about body image.
Yeah.
I, for the longest time, struggled to go to the gym and chronically overate.
Okay.
Which led a lot of times to me gaining weight and feeling horrible about myself.
Okay.
And even though I've done this, I've found ways to positively get my anxiety out
That's awesome, yeah.
rather than eating, because a lot of the times I feel like I used it as a coping mechanism,
Yes.
and I needed to reach out and ask for help, because otherwise I just sit there and not get over what I needed to get over and conquer my anxiety and feelings of depression. And the really key, I think, for me was reaching out
Yeah,
to people,
definitely.
this is all we're about here at Stand Together.
Yes.
And I'd like to tell you that even though if you're not diagnosed with a disorder, mental disorder, it's still valid, your
Exactly.
feelings of depression and anxiety. And that leads me to my question. Have you ever felt alone or isolated in your feelings?
Yes, definitely. I would say that I personally didn't ask for help because I didn't know I needed it, but my parents were, I'm fortunate enough to have parents that were able to identify that I had a problem, and so at a very young age, I was able to get the help that I needed, and I feel like I was really young, and the people that I knew at the time I was friends with, they weren't really familiar with my problem. Nobody could really relate to my situation, so I felt kind of alone in the sense that I didn't really know what to do for myself. The only people I had were at, the facility at which I was receiving help at. And unfortunately, you're not allowed legally to trade contacts with the people that you meet at those kinds of places. So I felt like the only people that really understood me were there. And it was hard kind of sometimes, just like going about your life experiencing these problems, but only being limited to talking about them with people who really understood you at a place where you only saw them a couple times a week and then never again after that.
Yeah. I think one thing you said is very important, having those connections.
Yeah.
Because if you can't have a connection with somebody that you can relate to, it's going to be extra tough to reach out, because if you don't have that relationship, you're going to have no want to reach out. You're going to not want to get out there and be known and ask for that help.
Yes.
And I think it's great because, I know you a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you've been able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really inspiring, especially for everyone else, thinking they're not alone. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the time, people don't say anything because they feel like I have to be the only one that feels this way. There's no way that anyone
Yeah.
else feels this way.
That's a very, very common thought process that people have. And I think while sometimes talking to people who understand your problem can be triggering for a person that has a disorder or is disorderly, it really does help. I think sometimes it can go south if it's in the wrong environment and you talk about things that are kind of not, monitored. But when if it's in the right environment and you find people that relate to your problems, it is so much more relieving than it is ever triggering, in my opinion. I think that people who really understand and aren't just, yelling at you, telling you things, telling you ways to help yourself without really having ever experienced it, it's a lot better when you're talking with people who have also experienced it and they're giving you advice. And you would be really amazed as to see how many people struggling uplift one another instead of triggering one another like you would think they might.
Yeah. And we're talking about mental health, ending its stigma. I think Lena wanted to start us off with something.
Yeah, so as many people know, I am a wrestler, and one of the great things about wrestling is that there are so many different weight classes, and you get to see so many different types of bodies participate in the sport. It's not just a one body sport image that you need to fit into. You can find any weight class. There can be big girls, small girls, strong girls, like it does not matter. And that's something that really helped me discover what it truly meant to have a healthy body, because I thought I had to look like the perfect model. I had to have the small waist, the hourglass shape. I needed to be petite and just like do Pilates and that kind of stuff. But I realized that I'm not genetically built that way, and it's impossible for me to look like that. I embraced that, and I realized that I need to embrace that, and I decided I personally wanted to bulk up. I wanted to gain muscle because that's what my body is built to do. So other girls, they can't do that. Not everyone can just eat and lift and they can put on all this muscle. Some people, they try to eat and they just can't. It's not in their genetics, it's not in their DNA. And that helped me discover what I truly can do. So that really altered my mind to see that I don't have to be that stereotypical pretty girl, and I embrace that big, strong girl that can do anything, lift anything, and still live a healthy life.
I think that's great because actually, fun fact about me, I tried wrestling when I was very young.
Really?
I did, yes. But what actually ended up happening, I felt so bad about my body, I quit. I was done. I moved on to baseball. But like, looking back, I think I would have enjoyed wrestling much more if I had your mindset. And I think it's very important, that mindset that you have, that not a lot of people have. This is a very, very good example of positive thoughts that you've manifested into just this great performance in the sport. I mean, I just saw in the gym, you got the one girl's name for the state.
Yeah.
What is it, state championship?
Yeah. You don't have to be strong to win a state championship. You just embrace the sport, love yourself, and if you're confident in yourself, then you're going to be confident in the sport and you're going to win.
Yeah. Amen, Lena. I got one question for you. Did you know that 1 in 4 people are either diagnosed with major depression or anxiety disorder?
I did not know that.
Well, guess what?
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah, that's something that everyone needs to open up their eyes to, that it's not just something that's portrayed out there, that people are hiding behind that and they're not really showing it. And so we need to all accept that and try to help those people that are in need, that are not even diagnosed, that are just hiding, but they're hiding that mental illness and they're scared to actually admit that. So we need to find those people that need that help, those people that already admit to that help. We need to help everyone.
And it's important to reach out to, because a lot of the times, as I've been saying, people don't reach out because they feel like they're alone. And I feel like what you've said could be a really good beacon to help people think to reach out, because just hearing that inspired me. I was like, wow, I never knew that about you. And it's crazy to think about, but like, I think you've done a really great job, and a really great job demonstrating, especially for everyone else, what it can look like when you dominate your anxieties and fears, or just don't have them in the first place.
Yeah, thank you.
Great job, Lena.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Of course.
Logan, I'd like to start off with a personal anecdote about myself. About two or so years ago, I thought, now's about the time I need to get going to the gym. I mean, other people are starting to do it. I felt like I needed to. I wanted to feel better. I wasn't feeling so great. I think to myself, oh, I need to do it. But I never found the courage to do it because I was always feeling so anxious and worried that I was going to be judged, when in reality, I knew I really wasn't. Those irrational thoughts that I knew were around really enabled me to make excuses and not go. And clearly, this guy's jacked. So I'd like to ask you, Logan, have you ever felt helpless or otherwise alone in your feelings?
Yes, definitely.
Do you have any specific examples you care to share?
Okay, well, I guess kind of school and finding a balance between that and my outside of school activity, like lifting weights. particularly, and then just generally finding like relaxation time and time to enjoy myself. That often caused a lot of problems last year, not so much this year, because I can feel like it's a little bit more smooth knowing that it's my senior year and I don't really have to worry a whole lot about stuff going into the, well, of course I do, but not as bad right now as it's going to be.
Yeah. And how do you think overthinking has brought upon these feelings of anxiety you were telling me about?
Well, sometimes you just need to go with the flow. Like, there's no amount of control that you gain by thinking too much, and there's really a fine line between thinking too little and thinking too much. You kind of have to find like the perfect balance, and it's very challenging to do.
I think that's very important what you just said, because I mean, finding that balance has been a big struggle for me as well, because I never really had a good balance between social life and school. And I think it's very important to realize that you are not alone. We are not alone in this. We are together and stronger the more people we know are with us, because if we have no clue and we don't vocalize anything, how are we to know that there's people out there that are facing similar problems and similar struggles and reach out? We won't know. And I think this is a great way, thank you for sharing that, because this is a great way to spread the awareness, and that's what we're all about here at Stand Together. And I'd like to ask you one more question, Logan.
Sure.
Did you know that 1 in 4 people, or roughly 26%, are diagnosed with either anxiety disorder or major depression?
I knew that because you told me this morning.
Well, either way, we know it now. Thank you, Logan, for your time.
Thank you.